go. All right, my name is Dennis Wirth, better known probably you guys as the child support superhero on my Facebook page. It's a page I created to spread awareness about parental alienation, child support, children's rights, fathers' rights, parents' rights, grandparents' rights. I've very much educated myself about the subject, and one of the smartest things I heard is, guys, they like to complain a lot about it, but they don't do nothing about it. Where women, on the other hand, they don't just complain about it, they actually actively do something about it. So I wanted to actively do something, and what can we as people do about solving the problem? And awareness is the key. How do you solve any problem? To awareness is the key to solving any problem. Recently, the Black Lives Matter thing came out, and whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, I can tell you this much: everybody's talking about it, and that's what we need to do with solving children's rights to both parents equally. So I'd like to go around. We can start. Just give us a brief story how you get involved with this system. I'm a victim of parental alienation. My son hasn't talked to me or anybody on my side of the family in over 8 years. Recently, after 8 years, he finally made contact with my mother, and they did go out for lunch. Still don't think he wants anything to do with me, but me and his mother, we were in a bitter court battle, and I couldn't even take it as an adult anymore. And so as a child, I don't think he had much of a chance. I mean, we've all dealt with a very unfair system, or we wouldn't be here. So that's my story, what brings me here today. Anybody else want to go first? I can see Corey here. The other two of you don't have videos, so I don't know. Angie?
Yeah, I can turn mine on. I'm just, hang on. Let's see. Oh, it's not letting me turn it on. Okay, well, I'll just quickly explain. My name is Angie. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, originally from Toronto. I'm a lawyer in Ontario and Quebec, criminal lawyer, and I have a birth son who's 7, almost 8, and an ex-spouse woman who had our second child. Both of them have the same father, who's my gay male friend in Toronto. We separated in September 2017. In March 2018, police showed up at my house when my kids were here. She made a report of sexual assault with a weapon, confinement, and harassment with her new boyfriend as her corroborating. She doesn't need a corroborating witness, but he's in the picture nevertheless, because she came to work in the same place as me and started having an affair with my boss, and they both pushed me out of the workplace, but that's a different story. We're here about the kids. Basically, then 2 months later, started the assault on custody, and between May 2018 and April 2019, she went to court 5 times with safeguard orders to take the kids. And the last time was ex parte, and I wasn't there, and my children haven't been home since, and it's been more than 2 years now. And I actually just filed a habeas corpus application because I never had a hearing. My kids were taken without a hearing. And after that, instead of giving me a hearing, they sent us to a psychosocial evaluation. And as I said, I'm a lawyer, I'm a woman, I'm a lesbian, I have no criminal record, no history of violence. And the psychologist, because the court has taken my kids already before they send me there, the psychologist says that I have a personality disorder. Well, of course, I mean, homosexuality just came out of the DSM a few years ago, and actually out of the criminal code as well. So I'm dealing with many layers of discrimination, even though I'm a lawyer.
So being a lawyer, do you think that helped you, or do you think that hurt you in this case? What you
you have to understand that I've spent $200,000 in the last 3 years on lawyers, because I have a criminal case, I have a family case, and I have a labor case. And I'm now representing myself in the family and criminal case because I'm trained as a criminal lawyer.
Now, are you paying child support while you're paying all these court fees?
Well, actually, no, because that's one of the tricks they've used, is that if they ever did ask for money, somebody would have had to look at the situation and give me a hearing. Okay. And so, but that's actually coming. We're going back to court in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure that's next, because now the tack is, well, you can't have your kids back because you're mentally unstable. Well, I'm mentally unstable because I'm a lawyer and a mother. And the way they took my kids actually was they had an ex parte hearing, and then they put in the order that the police could come. So I didn't know. And they had undercover police waiting for me at my house. And pulled up into my parking spot, and the undercover police officers ambushed me in my car and dragged me out of the driver's seat, and my two young children were strapped in the car and watching their mother be arrested and handcuffed and taken away. And they didn't see me after that. One was 4 and one was almost 6. They didn't see
All
me
they did
at all.
was
They
accuse
didn't see
you.
me. They didn't see me for 6 months. And the court messed up because whenever there's an ex parte order, they have to bring the person within 10 days. And so there's just been many, many, many legal mistakes, and I've been punished. The answer to the question of being a lawyer help me is no, because what's happened is that me trying to bring the court to bear and to make the court recognize the mistakes they've made has just made them dig in their heels more against me. And so I'm public enemy number one. Last year I did a demonstration in front of the courthouse when, do you guys hear the story about Martin Carpentier? He's a father that disappeared last summer in Quebec, and his 2 kids with his 2 daughters. Nobody knew what happened. And I stood in front of the courthouse with a sign saying, turn yourself in, Martin, I'll represent you in courts. And they've even used that again. It's in the judgment that because I'm involved in fathers' rights groups, that this is something that's being held against me to keep my kids from me now after 2 years of illegal detention. So anyway, there's a lot happening right now at the moment because my criminal trial just started February and we're going back for the next hearings in June. But it's been a ride,
It's up
guys.
to you now to prove you're
Been
stable, right? I mean, you have to prove now. All they have
no,
to
I don't
do
have
is
to.
accuse you of being mentally unstable.
That's
But
right.
now it's
But
on you
this
to
is
prove you are, right?
but this is the problem is that, like, it's, you know what it's like to wake up at the age of 43 and realize you've been on the wrong side for your whole life, and to understand that the most victimized, most oppressed people in Canadian society today are men. And like, it's what I have to do with the rest of my life. As soon as I became a lawyer, I was like, why did I become a lawyer?
Did you represent any other
Like,
cases that had to
no,
do with family law before you got involved
not
with it? Or?
not at all. But I did work as bail, hearing, and duty counsel, and half the guys I would see every morning were guys that were in jail for breaching their conditions for going over to see girlfriends who had texted them and said, come over. So I've sort of been, it's been in the back of my mind for a long time, but now I'm actually living the life of being treated like a father and being treated like a rapist by the justice system. And I'm a lawyer, and I'm a woman, I'm a mother. And so the whole thing is just turned everything upside down on its head, and I'm just ready to dedicate the rest of my life to this. So
You're seeing the other side of it, or what guys are going through, and it's
well, no,
not.
not on the other side, but just that, like, I mean, who's not going to, for example, I'll just give you a simple example, okay? We have a rule in the criminal code that says a person who's self-represented in a criminal case can't cross-examine the victim. Okay, that makes sense. A rapist shouldn't be able to cross-examine their victim in court. But considering that just yesterday I cross-examined her in the courtroom beside in family court, it doesn't make sense that I have to spend thousands of dollars in procedures to get a lawyer appointed to question. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that make the system very costly and inefficient for men that are unnecessary. And so, like, there's ways to fix it with the law, and that's my next chapter of life, is to get into politics, because it's not going to happen in the courtroom.
Well, in my case, I was paying the money. I was paying the child support, and I had to come up to thousands of dollars for a lawyer on top of paying the child support. And that's even twice as difficult. I can tell you that much from a personal standard.
Well, let me tell you something else just quickly, and then we can move on to the next person. I definitely have to mention my female privilege, which is that since I was arrested 3 years ago, the police have come to my house 25 times. And 25 times they walked away and didn't charge me and didn't do anything.
Why did you come to begin with?
Because she made false allegations, like I'm withholding the children. But then the police show up and I can show the email that says I'm not withholding the children. But for the way it works now is that it doesn't really matter what happens. She just needs to accumulate police reports and accumulate allegations, because nobody cares about the truth. There's no such thing as a false allegation anymore, which offends me to my core as a criminal lawyer. And that's the fundamental problem. So anyway, I'm going to let somebody else talk. I'm sorry I took so much time. Typical feminist.
No, that's, I mean, you're certainly,
but I'm not anymore. Not anymore.
No doubt about
it. I'm a former angry feminist turned angry former feminist. That's what I tell people. So please take the floor. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I want to hear everybody's problem to begin with, and I'm going to swing back to everybody, and we'll talk about how we're going to solve the problem. I don't know. Did I say that this is not a private meeting? This is a public meeting. So whatever you
I'm just
say,
trying to get my camera on because you guys need to see me. I'm the male half of a
whatever
lesbian
you're
couple.
saying is going to be in a public manner here. It's not a private. This isn't a private discussion.
Absolutely.
Public,
Absolutely.
so whatever you say. I'm not sure your name, but your handle here says HUAWEI. I don't know how to pronounce that. P30 Light. You were second in. Would you like to speak?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can
Can
hear
you hear
you
me?
now. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. My name is Kent Abrams. 330 Lite is just my phone's name. It's a Huawei phone. It's an Android device. Um, it's not. It's kind of complicated. My past. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I only see her twice a week. Um, me and the mother, we had a. It's supposed to be a divorce already. At this point, I'm from South Africa. You can probably hear. And there's a few men in South Africa that I know as well that are facing the same problem where they're not getting enough contact or time to spend with their kids, and they're willing. At the same time, behind our backs, we are labeled as like the deadbeat dad, and those that aren't willing to support enough. And when I am around my child, there was first those times of visitation where I could only see her for an hour, and due to court cases and due to uh, lawyer payments, eventually I got to spend more time with her. But during those visitations where I actually was at the mother's house, um, it was very stressful because I was told not to do this, not to hold her hand this way, not to lift her up too high, um, and it made me feel very incompetent. And then eventually there was a protection order. I don't know what you guys call it, but it was a protection order against me, um, because apparently I was acting out and being violent, but this was just fabricated, just like the fabrication was done to about my music, because I happen to create music as well. And then the mother felt that it was about her, and I had to sit there and explain what each song meant. And at the same time, they used it as of caution to kind of like use it against me. So that way, the protection order was made final, and now I only see my daughter twice a week. Hopefully, over time as she gets older, she'll be able to see that I actually want to spend more time with her. Now it's a bit longer on weekends, about 8 hours, but she doesn't stay over by my place just yet. And I'm thinking at the age of 2 that I should have more access. So I'm just surprised that it's not even a divorce yet. There's so many things like that actually lead to everything falling apart, starting with the stepmother, the mother-in-law, pardon me, that actually, disrespected my family and said like obscene things. The aunt walking in while I was keeping my child when she was just like a few months old, saying that I shouldn't greet her. And then that caused an argument that caused my daughter to get hysterical, and then they felt I was the problem, asking me to please leave the premises. So that's the situation that I'm in. In a nutshell, I'm a single dad trying to spend more time with his daughter.
So how do you see this as affecting your daughter? I mean, do you see she's confused by it, or is it having a negative effect on her, or how is it affecting her that you see?
Just hang on a second.
Yeah.
You can see me, right?
You can see you now, yeah.
Okay, here we go. So she kind of feels confused, but we kind of getting her into the norm of like she clings to me. She has like a stronger relationship with me than with anybody else in my household. Like if she had to maybe spend more days, like let's say if it was shared custody and there was maybe like 3 days or a week by my place and then a week by her mom's place, then there would be a even stronger relationship with my parents and my little girl. But now it's not happening that way as planned. It's not happening as I hope, and I'm sure that there's fathers out there that get to spend more time with their kids, and I'm wondering how did they get it right. I'd like to find the formula on that. So she's confused, but at the same time, we have happy moments. We try and make the most of it. There's no nap time for her when she's at my place. She doesn't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah,
Are your visits
well, go ahead.
are your visits supervised that's still, or you have her by yourself now?
Nah, she comes to my place. I think like when COVID hit, then like they kind of like had this method of, you know what, just come fetch her at the house, and then that kind of
Okay,
like
so it was COVID
kind
that
of like
changed the
it was
supervision. Okay,
it was kind of
interesting.
like a blessing in disguise type of a thing that happened. So we can go. I can take her to the park by myself, or you know, wherever by myself. But of course, I must just be considerate that my parents should also spend a little bit of time with them as well, because I'm still by my folks' place at the moment. Because well, I've hit the rocky patch myself. I've been unemployed since January.
Okay, but if you live with your parents, then that's even better because that's a good, I mean, from in a Canadian legal typical perspective, the fact that you have your parents there who want and who can help you and support you is actually good in your case.
Because your
So,
child's close to you and your parents now, and they're not
right.
going to want to take her out of that situation. But
Can I ask another silly question that's not silly? Is your ex-spouse also racialized, or is she white, or
No, she's brown like myself.
she's brown? Okay, good. I'm a brown girl too, so I just want to make sure. Okay,
are you
thanks.
looking at your video, Angie, or no?
Yeah, I came to the problem is that my phone's about to die and I'm on my headphones and so I need to change.
Okay.
I came inside for the
Well, I
Wi-Fi. I think
noticed
the
in my
Wi-Fi
case,
was the problem.
my son's 27 now, so I've already been through the ringer.
Let's see
But
now.
as they get
Wow.
older, when they're young, you know, because whether they got to be breastfed or whatever, they spend more time with the mother. But as they get older, the father has more access. But I mean, I actually got to the point where I had equal time, 50-50, but I still had to pay her child support because the money's dropped there. They're not going to give up the money, so that's for sure. So you got a long road ahead of you, unfortunately, but that's why the laws need to change.
Here we go.
There we go. Welcome.
Hi.
We have everything. All right.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. It might not stay, but hi.
Well, for now,
My
at least
I just want to explain my father's from India and my mother's white, so I come from an interracial background. And my ex-spouse is Persian, and so I'm actually in a brown girl versus brown girl situation, but brown man versus brown girl situation too. So anyway, move on to the next person.
All right, I guess we got Corey in here. Corey, we'll give you the floor here and see what you got to say.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Dennis, for hosting this. I've been dealing with parental alienation now for going on 12 years. It started with my oldest son, and he was about 6 months old. His mother wanted to go back and stay with her family. We had moved from BC to Alberta. I had started apprenticeship as a Boilermaker, so work was booming, trying to set up a family for me and my new family. And it was pretty rocky at first. There was some trust issues for sure. And so, most people know once there's trust issues, if those aren't resolved, it's definitely a breakdown in the relationship. And so I ended up coming home one day from work and there was a U-Haul in the driveway. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I walk in the house and the house was completely gutted. My son was being held by her, and I think her father was holding her at that time. So her father drove up from BC, and I think she left me my bedroom set and my living room pieces, and took all of my son's stuff, even though I'd purchased everything for him. She wasn't working at the time, and I was okay with that because I was doing well, and we needed her full time at home. And before that, it was hard for her to get work. So nonetheless, I was taking care of her and my son, and she got in an argument with my cousin. He had caught her lying to his mom, saying some pretty nasty things about me and how horrible it was here. Meanwhile, none of it was true. And I don't think she realized he was home at the time. He was staying in the basement. So she was downstairs in the basement on the phone. He heard the whole thing. So he told me about it, and I didn't think it was going to escalate to that, but it ended up, she called her dad up and had them come up. And so right from the get-go, I was dealing with false allegations. Then she tried to tell me it was just going to be temporary. She wanted to go back to school and get something going for herself. I didn't know my rights at that time. I didn't know what to do, and I was in complete shock. She gave me an hour to say goodbye, essentially, and with the promise that she would be back in a couple weeks. So once she left, I started looking into a couple things, and everything that she was telling me, there was red flags. And I received a couple weeks later in the mail, or I don't think it was, oh, she had come up. Okay, yeah, she did come back to so I could see him, but then she wanted me to sign these papers. And it was so that she could go back to school, but yet get funding from the government. And I hadn't dealt with any legal stuff at that point. I was so green to that field. And just a quick look over, I knew something was wrong. I said, no, I'm not willing to sign these. Like, whatever the case, like I will send money if you need. You're at your parents'. Yeah. And so I was just like, more red flags. So it just came to be, there was a lot of deception, a lot of lies right from the get-go. And it turned into a court struggle ever since. And because she had left with my son, when I first went to court, they stated that any other case, they would ask him to come back for her to bring him back. But because he was breastfeeding still, she used that to her advantage. And that essentially was the linchpin and prevented any kind of access at that point. I did see him a couple times, but it got to the point where I had to make all the trips back out to BC. It turned into a court battle right away. There were some laws in place where they wouldn't do it right away. We had to be separated for a certain period of time. So she had waited for that to progress everything. Fast forward, I had made sure I had arrangements, all the court orders in place. I was to see him, every holiday and through the summers. And that was fine. She was getting her child support. She was happy. But she always made it difficult, right? She'd always use the excuse, so I can't afford to come out to meet you at the halfway point, right? Or she would play these games. So it ended up I had to go to BC quite often to see him. Back in 2016, I had a debilitating knee injury. And I've actually dealt with parental alienation on both sides where it's in a 50-50.
How long has it been for you? How long have you been alienated? If you said it, I'm sorry, but how long has it been that you've been?
Going on 12 years dealing with it. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. So my middle son, I was also alienated with him very strongly at the beginning. Things have progressively gotten better, but I do know what it is to experience alienation, both with a 50-50 custody as well as 100% alienation where you can't see them at all or speak to them. That's what it came to. Is after 2016, I had a debilitating injury. I was no longer able to Boilermake. I had limited mobility for a long time, was unable to work, was going through my recovery. I saw my son I saw my son actually, he was with me that summer. He was about 8, I think, 7 or 8. And we had a good summer. In the middle of summer though, our visitation, I ended up blowing out my knee. And so it was, we had a lot of time on the game system thereafter for his last few days because we couldn't, I wasn't mobile at all. After that, she had maintenance come after me because they wouldn't change the court order. So there's legislation issues and I've taken it right to the top. That's why I've started a few groups myself, Parental Alienation Awareness Alberta, Parental Alienation Awareness BC. I've also partnered up with a fellow and we started a support group and training for men.
Are you Corey McFadden?
I am, that's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, right. Hi, right. Nice to see you. Hi.
nice to see you as well.
Hi. Well, you can't see me because I'm charging my phone, but go ahead.
When I did. So yeah, it got to the point where I had no way to even contact my son. Every time I would try and call him, this was my oldest, she would start a fight with me and say, well, you can't speak to him like this, or every conversation, which was court ordered for her not to be in the room, she would sit there and be in the room regardless, to the point where, she'd be in the tub and make him sit on the floor in the bathroom to have these conversations with me. Things were addressed. There was an incident where she wasn't at home when I drove all the way from Alberta to BC. was trying to get a hold of her, couldn't. It was half hour, we waited. We're like, okay, we're gonna go see my sister. She worked in town at the local Chinese restaurant. So went, sat down and eat. All of a sudden she comes storming in through the door and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so I pick up my son and she literally ripped him out of my arms and starts storming out. And she ended up, he tried to grab me again. And so I tried to hold him and she started punching me in the face while he was in my arms. And then she threw him in the back of the car and drove off, almost running my sister and my girlfriend over at the time. And almost went over the curb and there was a semi coming and all I could picture was a semi just totally in the vehicle. My son wasn't even strapped in the back. We're like banging on the window, like just buckle him in at least, like buckle him in, you know, and she takes off. And when I was dealing with the officers there, they were more concerned about the assault on me. I was concerned, well, where's my son? Is he safe? Is he okay? Like all I could see is him bouncing around in the back seat. I'm buckled in, you know, he was maybe, at that time, he was maybe 3 or 4, right? So he's pretty young. So just a multitude of different occurrences that, you know, in most people's right mind would state, well, there's some issues there that need to be addressed, and they were never addressed. Every time I tried to bring it up in court, got to the point I had to self-represent, and I started self-representing because I had spent over 10 grand in lawyers and I could no longer afford it. And it was just, yeah, it was easier for me to learn it. And so that's what I've been doing. I started after my injury there. I took a coaching certification, got my master's certification, looking into or studied NLP, CBT, and starting these support groups. As well, I've been studying contract law and international law, because what I've been finding is these foreign courts or these foreign entities, they run under different laws, right? And so when we contract into these systems, so to speak, we're agreeing to being a part of this. And so what I've come to learn is there's actually systems outside of that. So I'm learning the studies of how to bring these courts within the international courts and the federal courts. Back to what Angie was saying, how she's been having these issues. Same thing, like 10 years in the courts of like seeing how all these games are played and not comprehending all the different levels and the depths that these games are played at.
And you're standing there with the law right in front of you, and you're like, but it's right here. But it's right here, right? Nobody's listening to you. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you've seen firsthand that this is mentally affecting your children, right? I mean, there's no mind, right?
It broke me, and it wasn't. It was that point where I hit rock bottom, and you know, it took everything I had within me to pull myself out. And luckily, I found the right people. I was guided to the right people to give me that support and knowledge, and so. I see how important that is. I see how the development, you know, I'm also taking a certification with the Alberta Wellness, I think it's a brain story certification. And it actually talks about how the brain develops and in developing children and the ways it affects them and the stages of where it's most crucial and how it can affect them as well. So one of the biggest issues that they pointed out that I've noticed too is the research and the science isn't reaching the policymakers, and if it is, it's not being addressed as a solution that is viable and works, so to speak.
But you guys understand the reason for that, right? Is that it's all about money. Like family law has nothing to do with
it's
the
$1 billion a year business. I was just going to say that. I'm getting a 10-minute warning here from Zoom here because it's only a free account. So we've heard each other's stories, and I want to go. We got to go quick here, so try to be as brief as you can. But we've heard about each other's problems. How do we solve the problem? And you know, what would you like to see happen in your personal experience? How do you think we can solve the problem? I'll start with mine. The last words I heard from my son, I got a message from him on Facebook. It was, you should give mom more money. You don't pay enough money to mom. You pay an incredibly small amount of child support compared to most fathers. You know, you want to see me more, but you don't want to pay your fair share. My mom's new boyfriend willingly gives her more money for his child. It was a disgusting letter. And I thought, you know, if you're going to put one parent up here and one parent down here and make one in charge and one submissive, the system's never going to work. The only way it works is to be equal. And how do we get to that? Well, we need to change the laws, but as we just mentioned, $1 billion a year system is very difficult to take down. And, the research I've done is spreading awareness. Awareness is the key. That's why Corey's got a page, I got a page, and we got to get it to the point, like I brought up Black Lives Matter as an example, where, the movement becomes bigger than the money involved. So that's my opinion. Awareness is the key. But Angie, you being a lawyer, what are your thoughts? What do you think? How do we solve
Where are you, Dennis? Where are you
I'm in
located?
Massachusetts.
You're in okay, because I was thinking you got an American accent. I love
Boston
the way you talk. You sound like to me, you're like a Hollywood actor. Anyway, I just want to say that the money is the key issue, not just because of the lawyers and the $1 billion a year industry, but the fact that there exists an expression EOW with like that's something in family law shows you the extent to which these decisions are not taken on an individual basis, but rather with respect to getting the father to pay a maximum amount of child support and at the same time giving the fair amount of access. It's never going to be equal because it doesn't serve the taxman's purpose. They want to tax the money in the hand of the person that makes more. The fact, like, what's the only other money that's not taxed in Canada? That's what I always say. Child support and lottery. Those are the only income that a person can receive without paying tax on in Canada. You have a baby with somebody, and in our Android phone caller who's next after me, I can't remember your name, sir. I'm sorry. He was saying that, like, that's exactly what it is, right? And so it's never until the presumption of equal parenting comes from another angle, and this is sort of what I'm headed for. I'm headed for to bring the charter to family law in my case, because in my case, I have two mothers. So you can't say that there's not an equality analysis to be done there. So it might actually be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
That's two for money. Kent Abrams, you got the floor. How do we solve the problem?
Look, when it comes to your child support, that should be based on your living expenses. Like it should be accommodating the living expenses. How much are you earning? And let's take a percent of that. Let's not make sure that, let's see how we can milk this dude so that way he won't be able to, buy the clothes that he wants for his child, or get achieve the actual goals that he needs for himself to actually restart his life, or her life for that matter. So I think that needs to really be taken seriously in all courts. By the way, Corey, I just wanted to find out from you, do you video call your kids at all? Do you get that at least that amount of time with him?
So we used to. I used to have limited conversation on and off. She'd get upset about something, usually child support or monies, and disconnect any kind of contact we'd have.
That happens to me.
Yeah, we used to be able to play on the game system together. That was great because we could hear each other's voice. We could actually play a game together, interact. Again, that was taken away. So it's the games they play, which kind of...
I asked for 5 minutes, and then 3 minutes, then they cut the call. She just cuts the call randomly when she sees that that my daughter's really enjoying the moment, or maybe just laughed at a joke that I made, or if I ask her about a toy that I gave her that she prefers to play with at her mom's place, because the majority of the time she's by her mom's place. So then, okay, there's a portion of toys that's there by her place, and then there's a portion of toys that's here by me. She just dismisses the call when she feels she likes, because they feel like, the reason why I'm saying they is because it's not just another parent that you're dealing with, it's that parent's family that's also in the ear of that parent. So the manipulation is like a tree, and it's like, unfortunately, our children is like the roots of that tree.
So becomes a game, right? Becomes a big game. Yeah.
That's right.
Hurt people, right?
And unfortunately, our children are falling victim to that. So
Dennis, you asked what would be the solution. I think from my side, I would just try to get as much, start with myself, and then try and achieve as much as possible with myself in terms of getting the right legal teams behind me, speaking to groups like this, joining Zoom meetings like this, gaining ideas, and then also being patient. You told me that as your child got older, he became a bit more conscious. He was able to converse with you and maybe understand. Yes, there's a point of hate, but if they can see that you're trying, I think sooner or later your prayers will be answered.
All right. So awareness is the key. Corey, you got 2 minutes. How do we solve the problem?
Yeah, like you said, there's 3 A's, right? Awareness and awareness to the trauma. That's definitely one. Everything, once you break it down, behaviors, a lot of it is all trauma induced. So having the knowledge and being able to teach that aspect of it, taking action, need people taking action. I talk to guys all day long that, you know, a lot of people want to take action, but when it comes push to shove, a lot of guys are busy too, right? And so having the ability to put yourself in a position that you have that time to take action and to be a part of those things happening. And the other is accountability. When we can hold, whether it's each other accountable, whether it's the lawyers and judges accountable for the acts that are being played or the games that are being played, I think, and also the policymakers. So once we can establish the action, people coming together, we can then hold people accountable for what's going on.
Or we could start our own political party. That's my idea. Modern
Lots of guys are doing
Modern Equality Party of Canada. But you need a lesbian to say all these things. Unfortunately, no one's going to listen to you if it's a man. And this is, we should talk, okay? We should really talk.
Sounds like I
Definitely.
should
We
move
got
to
each other's
Dennis.
information. We got less than a minute.
Thank
here.
you.
I want to thank
I
you.
just wanted to, before we end off, Dennis, I just needed to also mention this important point.
Go ahead.
We need to promote co-parenting. We need to promote co-parenting more than anything
Presumption
else.
of shared custody.
Equal co-parenting. It can't be
Yeah.
one up here, one down here. It needs to be.
Presumption of shared custody in every family in every family jurisdiction. That's what it is.
Well, and there's international laws for that.
My page, like I said, the Child Support Superhero is my page. Corey, what's your page again?
Parental Alienation Awareness Alberta and BC.
All right, so we're leading the
And
way.
I'm